A simple pair of wire-rimmed glasses rested on the bridge of his nose. They were modest, much like the man himself. Wrapped in a humble, hand-spun cloth, he stood as a quiet contrast to the powerful leaders of his time. He moved slowly, often leaning on a bamboo walking stick that helped him traverse the vast lands of his home. People often looked at him and saw only a small, elderly man without possessions or an army. Yet, that small man shook a mighty empire, changing the course of history without ever firing a single shot. Where do you come from? Tell us in the comments below and follow along for the rest of this story. How does a single person challenge an entire system of control? It is a question that defines his legacy. Violence was the tool usually favored by the powerful to keep order and suppress those who demanded freedom. He chose a path that was the exact opposite of force. He walked the path of absolute non-violence. Peace was his weapon, and truth was his shield. This is the story of how he changed the world. Young Mohan was not always a revolutionary leader. At the start of his career, he was a shy, ambitious lawyer. He traveled far from his home to South Africa, seeking to build a life and a professional reputation. He expected to be judged by his skills and his character. He believed in justice as a standard rule. Instead, he found thick walls built by color and race. He realized that the law did not protect everyone equally. One cold, dark night, he boarded a train. He had a ticket in his pocket, perfectly legal and valid. A passenger looked at him with cold, hard eyes. The passenger complained about his presence in the first-class carriage. The conductor arrived shortly after. He did not look at the ticket. He looked only at the color of skin. He ordered the young lawyer to move to the back of the train. It was an unfair and humiliating command. Refusing, the lawyer stood his ground quietly. He knew that if he moved, he would be betraying his dignity. The train stopped at a remote, empty station. The air was biting and cold, and the night was pitch black. He was thrown off the train. His luggage was tossed onto the platform, scattered and left behind in the dirt. Shivering in the station, he felt a deep spark ignite within him. It was a realization that would change everything. That spark became a fire of determination. He would not accept this inequality as his reality or the world's reality. He began to develop a philosophy of satyagraha, or truth force. It meant fighting injustice without using any form of physical violence. This was the beginning of his transformation from a simple lawyer into a fighter for human rights. Returning to his home in India, he did not rush into the halls of power. He chose to look at the ground. He traveled across the country to understand the villages. He wanted to know the life of the ordinary person. What he saw was deep poverty. He saw people working long hours, while others held all the wealth. The people were suffering under heavy taxes. The authorities demanded money for basic things like the salt in their food. Salt is a simple thing. It is necessary for life, and it is found in the ocean all around the coast. The government made it illegal to collect salt. They wanted to force people to buy it from them. He knew this was wrong. He decided to act. He would march to the sea and make his own salt. It was a walk of hundreds of kilometers. Day by day, his small group grew into a massive crowd. Every step was a statement. Every kilometer walked was a message of defiance against an unjust, unfair tax law. When he reached the shore, he simply picked up a handful of salt from the sand. It was a victory. Millions of people across the country followed his lead. They realized that their strength was not in weapons, but in unity. Non-violence is not weakness. It is the hardest kind of strength. It requires great control over one's own anger. To be hit and not hit back takes more courage than any soldier has in battle. That was his teaching. He showed the people that they had power. They did not need to break the law with violence. They could break it with truth. The authorities were confused. They knew how to handle violence, but they did not know how to handle calm resistance. Every arrest only made the movement stronger. Every time he went to jail, his influence over the people grew. The world began to watch. News of the Salt March spread to every corner of the globe. The story was told everywhere. His simplicity became his shield. No one could accuse him of greed because he had nothing to lose. He was teaching his people how to be free. First, they had to be free from fear within their own hearts. This movement was gaining unstoppable momentum. The dream of independence was no longer just a dream. It was becoming a plan. Freedom, however, comes at a high price. The journey was filled with shadows and long, difficult years of struggle. He was thrown into prison again and again. Each time, the walls were cold and the life was lonely. He suffered through hunger and illness. He spent years behind bars, separated from his people and his family. Despite the darkness of his cell, he remained calm. He spent his time spinning cloth, reading and writing letters. Leading millions of people is an exhausting burden. He felt the weight of every person who believed in his vision. There was a growing tension between different religious groups. The unity he fought for was beginning to crack apart. He worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between Muslims and Hindus. He prayed that they would live as brothers. When violence broke out, he went to the places of conflict. He walked through the streets of rioting cities. He fasted until the fighting stopped. He was willing to sacrifice his own life to restore peace among neighbors. The British authorities watched with nervous eyes. They could not defeat a man who was ready to die for peace. He was beaten, but he did not hit back. He was jailed, but he did not hate his jailers. This resilience was his most powerful tool. It made the authorities look like bullies, and he looked like a saint. The cost of the movement was high. He gave up his personal life, his wealth, and his comfort completely. He was tired, but he never stopped. His faith in non-violence was the foundation that kept him standing. He had shown that even in the face of the strongest empire, one person's conscience can shift the course of history. Independence finally arrived, but it brought mixed feelings. The joy of freedom was clouded by the pain of a divided country. His heart was heavy. The goal had been unity, but the result was a nation split into two parts. He did not celebrate with the crowds. He was in a small, poor village, praying for peace and understanding. The final days of his life were spent working for harmony. He walked among the people, begging for calm. His life also teaches us about the power of persistence. He didn't win independence in a day or a year. He worked for decades. He faced many failures and many moments of darkness. But he never gave up on his dream. He believed that even the smallest person can make a difference if they are consistent and dedicated to a good cause. Think about the simple things he used: a spinning wheel, a walking stick, a pinch of salt. These are not things we usually associate with power. But in Gandhi's hands, they became symbols that moved millions. He showed that you don't need fancy technology or a lot of money to make a statement. You just need a clear message and the courage to stand by it. Gandhi's message of non-violence is especially important today. In a world full of conflict, his life serves as a reminder that there is always another way. We can disagree with people without hating them. We can fight for justice without using weapons. This is not the easy path. In fact, it is much harder than being violent. But it is the only path that leads to true peace. As we look back on his journey, we see a man who was completely honest. He called his autobiography My Experiments with Truth. He didn't claim to have all the answers. He was always learning and always testing his ideas. This humility is what made him so relatable to everyone. He was a human being who chose to live his life for the benefit of others. In our busy lives, it is easy to forget the importance of silence and reflection. Gandhi spent one day every week in complete silence. He used that time to listen to his inner voice. He believed that when we are quiet, we can hear the truth more clearly. He taught us that we should speak only when our words are better than silence. His simple life is also a lesson in environmental care. He believed that the earth provides enough for every man's need, but not for every man's greed. He lived with very little and wasted nothing. Long before people were talking about sustainability, Gandhi was practicing it every day. He showed that living a simple life is not about being poor, but about being rich in spirit. The story of Mahatma Gandhi is one of the most inspiring stories of the 20th century. It is a story of how truth and love can defeat power and hate. He started as a shy boy and ended as a light for the whole world. Even though he was killed, his spirit remains alive in every person who stands up for justice using peaceful means. I hope you found this look at Gandhi's life meaningful. His journey reminds us that our actions, no matter how small, have consequences. We all have the power to influence the people around us. Every time we choose kindness over anger, we are following in the footsteps of the Mahatma. We are contributing to a more peaceful world in our own small way. Take a moment to think about what part of Gandhi's story touched you the most. Was it the train incident in South Africa? Or perhaps the Salt March? His life was full of moments that challenge us to think differently about power and leadership. He was a man who led by example, and that is the most powerful kind of leadership there is. Remember his words whenever you feel like you are too small to make a difference. One person, with nothing but a stick and a dream, changed the world. You have a voice, and you have the ability to choose your path. Use your life to do something good, and you will find a sense of purpose that no one can take from you. Thank you for joining me on this historical journey. If you found this story inspiring, please give the video a like and share it with someone who might need some inspiration today. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the lives of people who changed the world. Until next time, stay curious and keep seeking the truth.